Well, I've currently got a contract with the board of the Police Association that's 5.5 years long. It expires in next April, and I've just decided not to seek another one. I think you've got to know in the end when it's time to go. You don't end up like the punch-drunk boxer that comes back for one bout too many.
But that's almost a year off.
Yeah, it is. I undertook at the beginning of my term as the Secretary of the Police Association to give the executive 12 months' notice so that they could then start turning their minds to who might succeed me in the role. And I gave them that notice back at the April executive meeting. So that's been done for a little while now, and as you rightly say, there's about 10 months to go.
Does that make you a bit of a lame duck leader for that period?
Well, that's always the problem with these things coming out early. I don't think it does, to be honest, because certainly there's no successor been appointed, and there won't be until sometime around about February, March next year, perhaps February next year. So we've still got 8 or 10 months to run. It'll be business as usual, but I won't go on beyond April.
Have you just had enough? You're tired? What is the reason? You're a young man still.
Well, I'll be 55 next April, which is not ancient, but that'll be over 37 years as a member of the Victoria Police Force, the third of 4 generations in that police force. I can hand the baton over to my young bloke, and he can continue that. But I just think there's everyone's got a shelf life, and I may not have hit the use-by date yet, but I'm by April next year I think I'll be at the best before.
So you won't go back on the divvy van?
I don't think so. I think I'm a little too crusty a curmudgeon to be dealing with young people now at 4 o'clock in the morning.
So will you resign from the police force as well?
Yeah, I'll retire from the Victoria Police Force, and I've verbally advised the Chief Commissioner of that, and I'll just finish, I suppose, with the Police Association and slowly wander away and mount the horse, drag the bush behind it, cover the tracks as I ride off into the sunset.
You have changed the nature of the job, haven't you, from Paul Mullet?
Well, certainly I've a different way of doing things than Paul did. And Paul did some fantastic things for police officers in this state. He put a few noses out of joint. There's no doubt about that. And of course, we know what happened at the end there and the disgraceful way that he was dealt with. And that's a terribly, terribly sad thing that a fellow who put his heart and soul into the organisation was dealt with by the OPI as it was back then. Yeah, I've done it differently, and he did it differently to his predecessor, and hopefully I've managed to do it as well as I could.
Has it been your background as a stand-up comedian that's allowed you to have the one-liners in the press conferences?
A very, very poor amateur stand-up comedian, perhaps, Neil. Look, that's just my way, and it probably served reasonably well, and hopefully continues to serve reasonably well. Particularly the televisions like that 3-second grab, and if you waffle on with your answers, probably like I am now, you tend to end up on the cutting room floor. So if you can get the message across quickly and in a way that the media find interesting, then hopefully the message gets across.
You feel a bit emotional about it?
Not so much yet, because it's still quite a way off. But making the decision, I suppose, is always a large one. For be probably no different to yourself for the amount of time you've spent in the media doing what you do. When you realise that you always know that day is going to come, but to actually start the countdown clock, I suppose, it's a little bit emotional, I suppose. Yeah, but I'm certainly not crying myself to sleep. I've got lots of things to do when I finish.
Do you think that you might look at a political career?
No.
State politics? No.
No. Short answer.
Why?
I think there's a lot of good people in politics, both in the state and in the federal government. But I think, as an outsider looking in, I think there's a lot of people go in full of great ideas and want to be able to change things and make things right, and find that if they're going to be able to do anything, they have to be a part of the party machine. And the machine wants to go in one direction, and the individual may want to go in a slightly different direction, and they can't. And the only way that they can actually go in their own way is to go in as an independent, where you basically have next to no influence.
You've been there through some of the toughest, most tumultuous times with Christine Nixon going, then Simon Overland going, the Noel Ashby, Paul Mullet, Stephen Linnell case, and through some extraordinary times. What stands out to you as the most important thing that happened in your period there?
I think the most important thing that's happened is, well, probably 3 that are share top spot on the podium for mine, Neil, is that we've got record numbers of police recruits going in, the highest number in the 160-year history of the police force. We've had the best police pay outcome in Australia for half a decade, and we now have a relationship with the Chief Commissioner and with government where we're not on the front page all the time. We're not fighting trench warfare. Trench warfare usually has a high attrition rate, gets you trench foot and not doesn't gain you a whole lot of ground. Ken Lay and I have a relationship now where we can, which we've always had, but because we're now in the positions we are, where we can deal with most issues over the telephone or face to face, and they don't become the major issues that then attract the interest of the media. So that, and I suppose the fact that I hope to be able to leave the Police Association about 50% better off in terms of its overall equity and hopefully in a good position.
Let's look at some of the characters or the people you've dealt with over that time. Simon Overland, you went after him pretty hard.
In the end, I suppose I was fairly strong in many of my comments. Certainly when he came into the role, I think even he would admit that I did my level best to try and create a relationship with him because we were going to have to work with each other, and I suppose we were a little oil and water. We really didn't gel in any way, shape or form, I suppose, other than a joint liking for the Hawthorn Football Club. That was about it.
Do you think you played a role in getting rid of him?
Look, in the end, I suppose that was a matter for the Premier Police Minister and himself at the time as to what he ended up deciding to do, and as we know, he tendered his resignation. I think probably I had some influence or impact on his decision. Whether my role was enough to make him choose that path or not is, well, only he would be able to tell you, I suppose.
In retrospect, right decision for him to go?
I think it was, and again, I can't speak for him, and he's very much his own man, but he's in a different role, in a different state at the moment. Hopefully he's in a happier place, and the police force is in a happier place.
What about Sir Ken Jones? Was he dudded?
I think he was. I think they got the wrong man. I think we still haven't heard the final outcome of all of that.
Will we ever hear what happened?
Well, I don't know. It's a fairly extraordinary state of affairs that here we are years down the track, and yes, there have been some victims, and some will argue rightly, some will argue wrongly, but probably the pivotal central piece of all of that was Sir Ken Jones, and he doesn't have any closure, and he's still apparently sitting at home in the UK unemployed.
Do you think he should have been considered for Chief Commissioner?
Well, I think he was certainly considered for the role when Simon Overland was given it.
I mean later, right?
Yeah, well, I suppose once he became embroiled in the turmoil that we knew he was involved in, it was always going to be probably beyond the government to offer him the position, or perhaps even for him to take it. As to whether he'd have been a good Chief Commissioner or not, certainly his ideas on policing and mine generally coincided. That doesn't necessarily mean he would have been a good Chief Commissioner. It might mean that he would have been easy to get along with, but then Ken Lay is too.
There's a perception that there was sort of a bit of a conspiracy going on behind the scenes through Peter Ryan's office and his political advisor. Was there?
I don't think there was a conspiracy. I think hopefully when all of the evidence is out there, and that may never happen. I mean, that's now, I suppose.
Should it happen? Should we know?
Well, I think it probably should, and that's really within the bailiwick, I suppose, now of the IBAC, as there is no OPI to release the.
Well, we know there was an OPI inquiry. Where's all that gone to IBAC?
I'm assuming it's gone to IBAC, or the Ombudsman still has it, one or the other. What the IBAC, if they have it, then decide to do with it is a matter for them. But it would be nice to see the truth actually come out, and not an investigation that was based clearly on someone's pet theory. It wasn't to me. It certainly never seemed to be an investigation that was actually a search for the truth. It seemed to me to be an inquiry conducted to try and prop up a pet theory. Talking Melbourne.